I saved Jessica from the abuse of her birth family, not only helping her escape that life and get into a top university, but even setting her on the path to becoming a powerhouse in business. Yet just when everyone thought it was a perfect ending, I was told I had terminal cancer and was going to die soon. The day I was diagnosed, I dreamed I was the tragic, early departing white moonlight from a melodrama. My childhood friend Luke Dawson kept chattering, "Jennifer Delaney, let's go for spicy hot pot." I smiled lightly. "Let's change it up, try tomato broth." The heroine in that story couldn't handle spice, but to be like me, she let Luke keep her, ate spicy food every day, and ended up with a stomach disease. Since I had little time left, I was even less willing to let others be dragged down by me. In the steaming hot pot restaurant, it was only Luke and me. The table was piled with dishes full of color, aroma, and flavor. I chewed slowly, the corner of my mouth curving. Tomato broth is actually better than the spicy kind. People should try different things, that's how you find something better. I meant more than the food, and Luke, who was smooth at social dealings, instantly sensed something off. He asked softly, "Jennifer, what's wrong?" I gave a faint smile, shook my head and said it was nothing. I hadn't told anyone about my late-stage cancer. I wouldn't worry people, what good would that do when I didn't have long? My gaze was pulled to a girl outside. She was thinly dressed, clutching a basket of flowers. Her face was white from the cold and she looked pitiful. What surprised me most was how much she resembled me, the same brows, the same lips, as if cut from the same mold. That must be the heroine from my dream. I remembered the heavily made-up version, and it was hard to imagine she'd once been so small and vulnerable. I stepped out of the restaurant and smiled at her. "Since you look so much like me, fate must be on our side. I ordered more than I can eat, and don't want it to go to waste. Come inside and finish it with me." "I'll buy all your flowers." I pointed to the upscale restaurant. Something shy and bright flashed in her eyes. I took her hand, brought her in, introduced her to Luke, and began to serve her food. The girl devoured the meal, and then with nimble fingers wove 2 little bracelets from the wildflowers in her basket and handed one to me. "Pretty sister, this is for you." I took the bracelet and asked softly, "It's freezing out. Why are you alone selling flowers on the street?" Her face reddened with embarrassment. "My name is Jessica Miller. I've been accepted to North China University's finance program, but my mother says we're short on money and that girls don't need so much schooling." She put down her chopsticks and, with a worried look, explained that she'd been trying to find work, but employers and factories refused her because she had no ID and looked too small and weak. With no other choice, she'd picked wildflowers from her family's field to sell. In my dream, I'd only remembered a heavily made-up Jessica who'd gone astray, taken in and humiliated by Luke after he'd lost his white moonlight. A story of abuse and reconciliation that twisted and turned. Low education, narrow horizon, a toad wanting a swan, one of Luke's friends said about Jessica. Unexpectedly, despite being a top student, Jessica had been forced to drop out. I pulled a bank card from my bag and waved it. "A top finance student at North China University, if you graduate and come work for Delaney Group and never quit, I'll give you 100,000 now as an advance." Jessica was over the moon, babbling, I I promise I'll never quit. I'll help Delaney Group get even better." I gave her the card pin and my contact info, sent her an electronic contract to sign, and then let her go. Luke, who'd been silent until then, finally spoke. "Delaney Group doesn't lack talent, Jennifer. You're too kind." I smiled faintly and said nothing. If the heroine gained a higher education, she wouldn't be mocked for staying with Luke later. With Delaney Group to back her, she wouldn't worry about her future. Aside from my impending death, everything else looked fine. The gate of North China University was crowded that day, Jessica's registration day, and also the day I'd been invited, as an outstanding alumna, to give a speech. I stepped out of the Rolls-Royce wearing a black swan dress, pale and elegant, my features fine, my bearing gentle, and instantly drew every eye. Then a shrill, bawling voice cut across the air. Jessica, so you've got some nerve sneaking off to study, trying to deny your family and not support your brother. The words clouded my expression and tightened my brow. Following the voice through the press of bodies, I pushed aside the crowd and saw Jessica in tears, pleading. A shifty, plain-looking woman had grabbed her by the hair and was screaming at her. I let you finish high school to raise your bride price, to help your brother get married, not so you could go to college. To that woman, Jessica was priced like a commodity by her bride price. Jessica winced in pain, but still begged softly, Mom, please go home. I promise I'll finish university and help my brother get married. The onlookers couldn't stand it and began to speak up for Jessica. The woman ignored them and, as she raised her hand to slap Jessica, I stepped forward and clamped down hard on her raised arm. Girls are to be treasured, not used as tools to get a son married. My voice lost its usual softness and grew sharp. The woman froze for a moment. Seeing my fine clothes, the woman forced a smile and hissed, Miss, don't meddle in our family business. Jessica is shameless. She hooked a wealthy suitor for university money and left us all to fend for ourselves. Jessica, used to this abuse, showed no surprise. She'd heard it all before. She only protested weakly. Mom, I only had 100,000 inches total and gave 80,000 to the family. Can you please go back? The people around her trembled slightly. I quietly gripped her soft hand to reassure her. Then I turned to the woman and smiled. Jessica's university fees are on me. When she graduates, she'll go straight to work at Delaney Group with a 7-figure salary and limitless prospects. The woman's dull eyes lit up and she beamed foolishly. A 7-figure salary? Of course I support her going to university then. She tried to leave, but Jessica stood dazed and I moved to block the woman's path. Don't rush off, I smiled. I called my assistant and, before long, he arrived with a black leather bag. I pulled out a stack of 100,000 inches cash and slammed it onto the woman's face. Kneel down and apologize to Jessica. This is yours. The woman's face reddened from the blow, but she still smiled and genuinely knelt and apologized to Jessica. I said coldly, There's a clause in the contract Jessica signed. None of her future salary may go to her family, or she will be fired immediately. That meant the woman wouldn't get a single cent of Jessica's future income, and the light in her eyes dimmed. I patted the black bag and continued, But if you hand over custody of Jessica to me now, then all of this will be yours. The woman said deal 3 times in a row. After she signed the contract, I slammed the black leather bag down on her head, and thick stacks of red banknotes burst into the air around her. Her scalp split open, blood seeping down, yet she didn't move an inch. I grabbed her hair and yanked hard. That's for laying a hand on our Jessica. The campus forum exploded. The post titled "Gentle Goddess Throws $1 million for a Poor Girl" stayed at the top of the hot list. The so-called gentle goddess was me. The poor girl was Jessica. When I saw the post, my family doctor was tending to Jessica's scalp wound. I leaned back on the sofa, looking at her reddened eyes like a frightened little rabbit, and couldn't help but think how unbearably adorable she was. Jessica said gratefully, Sister, the money you gave my mom today, I'll pay you back one day. I shook my head. You don't need to. Your pretty sister's got you. The heroine always has her halo. She's destined to rise to the top. One day she'd have more money than she could ever spend, but I wouldn't live to see that day. Nor did I want her to pay me back. After Jessica's wound was bandaged, I went on stage to give my speech as an outstanding graduate. Flashlights instantly surrounded me. I handled it with ease, read the speech I'd prepared long ago, and earned a wave of praise and applause. I lifted the mic closer to my lips and began slowly. Jennifer has one more thing she wants to say. Every girl is a flower waiting to bloom. We all blossom in our own season. Don't let gossip and ancient prejudice drown you. In today's world, if a woman isn't pretty, she's wrong. If she's too strong, she's wrong. If she argues, she's wrong. Even later, When Luke willingly kept Jessica, everyone still blamed only her. If people weren't blinded by deep-rooted bias and judged fairly, they'd see that even if Jessica wanted to rise to the branch, she'd still need Luke's consent. Among the bowed heads lost in thought, I spotted Jessica with her bandaged scalp. Her eyes glistened, and across the space between us, our gazes met and we smiled at each other. Raised in a family that valued sons over daughters, she'd been taught all her life that everything came second to her brother. Growing up in such a warped environment and still keeping a sound mind was remarkable. After that speech, I took over all the operations of Delaney Group. As its only daughter, I held absolute power. I worked tirelessly, and intentionally or not, let Jessica see which companies we should invest in and how to plan future strategies. Jessica had a sharp eye. Every company she pointed out brought hundredfold returns. When she suggested investing in niche tourism, I took her advice. As soon as the project launched, it became a hit. I was stunned by her intellect, had to admit she was brilliant. Jessica treated me with great care. She didn't live on campus, and after class she'd always bring me meals. Because of the cancer, my complexion grew paler. My stomach felt hollow, yet I couldn't eat. Strangely enough, everything made me nauseous, except the food Jessica brought. I could at least eat a few bites of that. One night, after washing up and getting ready for bed, I found Jessica asleep on the sofa. I sighed helplessly. How could she take such poor care of herself? I picked up a pink blanket and draped it over her. Then my gaze fell on her open laptop, and the search history froze me in place. Light, easy recipes. What causes pale skin and loss of appetite? Is it normal for a woman in her 20s to lose weight quickly? Just then, Jessica stirred awake. Still half asleep, she reached out and shut the laptop. I parted my lips but couldn't find the right words. After a long moment, I said softly, "You don't have to do this. I wouldn't live much longer. Why waste her youth on me? At her age, she should be studying, not carrying this weight." Jessica took my hand and, for the first time, defied me. "I want to." The warmth of her palm flowed slowly into some hidden place inside me, something I couldn't name. In stories, the heroine's aura wasn't just beauty and wit. It was kindness and gratitude. No wonder the Luke who tormented her in that dream eventually fell in love with her. She had that power. Luke, just thinking of him sent a deep ache through my chest. I said distractedly to Jessica, "Go to sleep." Then I went upstairs on unsteady legs. Lying in bed, I tossed and turned. A flash of lightning cut across the sky. A cool breeze drifted in, and soon a soft rain began to fall. I curled up instinctively. These days I'd been avoiding Luke, slowly fading from his world, so that when I died, he wouldn't crumble the way he had in the story, broken and hollow. My bright, untouchable boy deserved to stand atop the world, gazing down at the crowds. But hearts are made of flesh. Childhood bonds don't fade so easily. Knowing I was dying, I suddenly wanted to see him one last time. My vision blurred as memories of our youth flickered before me. Fate really was cruel. Then my phone lit up with a message from Luke. "Jennifer, I miss you." 6 short words and they broke me. Luke had been born into privilege, a piano prodigy who'd won a world-class award at 19. But after my death in that dream, he became distant and cold, never touching the piano again. Taking over the Dawson Empire, he buried himself in work, and within 3 years made it the top conglomerate in the capital. Everyone praised his brilliance, but only I knew how fragile he was. In the dead of night, he'd trace our photo with trembling fingers, tears falling before he noticed. I texted him back, asking to meet at a private theater, then fell asleep under the weight of my thoughts. The next morning, after a quick breakfast, I went to our meeting place. As soon as I arrived, I saw Luke waiting, handsome features, soft and gentle, eyes fixed on me. The world seemed hushed, time at peace, and the emotions I'd tried to bury surged up again. Forcing them down, I walked toward him. "Luke, you're always early for our dates." His bright eyes curved with a smile. With Miss Jennifer Delaney? I wouldn't dare be late. The fog in my heart cleared in an instant. I sat beside him and, when choosing a movie, deliberately picked a tragic romance. When the heroine died and the hero grew old alone, I casually said, "If one day I'm gone, Luke, you have to live well, get married, have kids." I didn't want him to mourn me forever. I wanted him to keep his fire alive. Even if, in the dream, he ended up with Jessica, I bore no resentment. How could I be so selfish as to condemn him to loneliness? I wanted someone by his side, not a man who numbed himself with endless work, dead inside. Luke's grip on my hand suddenly tightened, his whole body wrapped in a thin layer of cold that sent a chill through me. After a long silence, his hoarse voice came. "Jennifer, you're too young to joke like that." I let out a small laugh, stood up, spread my arms, and pulled him into a fierce embrace, as if someone drowning in icy water had just found a piece of driftwood, clutching it like life itself. "Don't be mad. I was just kidding." Later, Luke and I went shopping together. When we passed a shop selling plaster figurines, I stopped in my tracks. I'd never cared for these trinkets before, but this time I pulled Luke along and carefully picked out designs. Sunlight poured over our faces as we painted, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. I didn't want to think about anything, just focused on this last date with Luke. When I said goodbye and went home, the cold moon hung high, starlight sprinkling across the ground. I opened the door. Jessica wasn't sitting on the sofa as usual, waiting for me with bright eyes. I called out, "Jessica?" But there was no answer. A vague unease rose in my chest. I took out my phone and called Uncle Tony. "Use the Delaney family network. I need you to find someone for me." When the clock hand moved from 9 to 10, I glanced out the window. Pure white snow was falling silently. The wind howled outside, but still no sign of Jessica. Suddenly, my phone lit up. It was a message from Uncle Tony. "Miss, we found her. She's here, but she seems mentally unstable. We don't dare approach." I immediately threw on a coat, got in my car, and sped off to find her. When I arrived, Tony's men had the dark, narrow alley surrounded, but none of them dared step forward. I walked ahead quietly and froze. A surge of fury welled up inside me. Jessica was crouched in the corner, barely clothed, clutching a blood-stained utility knife. In the dim light, I reached out to her, my voice gentle. "Jessica, it's me, Jennifer." She slowly raised her head, fear still flickering in her red, swollen eyes. The night was silent except for the clatter as the knife fell from her hand. Her voice trembled with guilt. "Sister, I think I've caused you trouble again." I pulled her into my arms. "Who was it?" Jessica told me everything. The spoiled young master of the Smith family had taken a dislike to her withdrawn nature and gathered people to corner her to ruin her. In panic, she stabbed him once with the utility knife, and only then did the others scatter like frightened birds. I gently stroked her frail back. "Jason Smith? That hardly counts as trouble. The Smiths might be rich in the capital, but they were nothing more than newly minted upstarts without true foundation. The Delaneys, merchants for 3 generations, had businesses across the globe. The Smiths had never been worth my attention. After bringing Jessica home, I spoke softly to calm her and called our family doctor to examine her. Once I knew she was fine, I finally let out a breath of relief. I couldn't help sighing what a tragic fate she had. No matter where she went, she was met with cruelty. The next morning, when Jessica went to class at North China University, I walked beside her, dressed simply in a white blouse under a bright red coat, elegant and striking. As expected, the moment we entered the school, a girl with a scornful face came striding up. Her tone was sharp. "Jessica, you've got guts hurting a classmate like that? Jason's family is already here demanding justice. You'd better be ready to get expelled and live off charity." Her haughty voice died the instant she saw me. Her expression stiffened. I blinked, feigning confusion. "Go on. Why stop? I recognized her, Kristen, the student counselor at North China University. Middle-class background, but greedy and selfish to the core. I'd never paid her much mind before, but now that she dared to drag Jessica into this, Kristen's attitude flipped instantly. Her voice softened. Miss Jennifer, it seems Jessica had a conflict with Jason. She needs to go to the principal's office. I arched a brow. Mind your words. My parents only had one child. Then, taking Jessica by the arm, I headed straight for the principal's office from memory. Students bustled by like morning sunlight, bright and full of life. But among them, a few beasts wore human faces. As we reached the door, a harsh voice barked from inside. Jessica assaulted a classmate with a knife-deliberate injury. How can North China University still keep a person like that? The Smiths have already filed a lawsuit. The legal notice will be in Jessica's hands any moment. I pushed open the door and let my gaze sweep across the room, the corner of my lips curling. Such shameless lies, what a display of Smith family arrogance. Jason tried to stand, but the movement tugged at his wound, and he winced in pain. He groaned from the sofa, and I found his noise irritating. My eyes locked on the man who had spoken Jason's father, Kyle. If the lawyer's letter comes, we'll see you in court. The Delaney's will be there. My tone was calm but heavy, like a stone thrown into still water, sending ripples through the room. Kyle's head dropped. Didn't expect Jessica to know Miss Delaney herself. Jason's injuries aren't serious. We can settle this privately, Kyle said at last. He'd lived in the capital long enough to know better. Crossing the Delaney's meant being finished here. He shot Jason a furious glare, as if blaming him for picking the worst person to provoke. Jason looked utterly lost. Suddenly, I understood why someone had dared target her that day. Probably because I'd been unwell lately and hadn't been around Jessica, giving others the chance to act. Seeing my silence, Kyle forced a smile. Jessica hurt our Jason, just apologize and we'll let it go. Kids fight sometimes, no need to make a fuss. I gave him a mocking look. Let's get one thing straight. Jason led a group to corner Jessica and tried to ruin her. Was defending herself a crime? I don't think so. My tone was firm. And I, times will, times make a fuss. Court convenes tomorrow, I said it. Silent until now. Jason suddenly burst out, furious. Jessica's always walking around with her head down, acting all cold and untouchable. It pissed me off. So yeah, I cornered her. The harsher his words, the more shameless they sounded. Even if Jessica's temperament wasn't perfect, that was no excuse for bullying her. I was about to speak, but Jessica tugged my hand gently and whispered, Sister, just let it go. I stared at her in disbelief, then sighed, patient and soft. It's okay. I don't mind the trouble. If we let this slide, people would keep targeting her without fear. Jessica was still too innocent to understand that sometimes you have to make an example. I turned to Jason and said coldly, If you have a problem, save it for the courtroom. Then I pulled Jessica away, leaving the Smiths uneasy and pale. After all, the Delaney family's lawyers were legendary, never once losing a case, known as the invincible of the capital. And since Jason was clearly in the wrong, there was nothing they could do. Later that day, after Jessica's classes, I bought milk tea and parked my sports car outside the university, waiting quietly. When Jessica saw me, she ran over, calling, Sister! I opened the car door. Get in. Let's go for a drive. The road was quiet, sunlight soft, winter air crisp. It was calm yet comforting. When we stopped at a scenic overlook, I handed Jessica her milk tea. Out you go. She sipped her drink as we walked, surrounded by green hills and fresh, clean air that filled the lungs. This was Mount White Cloud, not as steep or tiring as other mountains, more suited for relaxing the mind and body. From the summit, Jessica looked down. The drop was dizzying, a haze of green stretching endlessly below. Mist wrapped around the peaks, adding a sense of mystery, like a living painting. I said slowly, The Delaney family has donated 3 libraries, 2 cafeterias, and a dorm building to North China University. You have nothing to feel inferior about. Jason had said she always walked with her head down and acted aloof, but really, she was just too afraid to speak to anyone. After all, growing up poor and in a family that favored sons over daughters, humility was carved into her bones. She had no choice. Jessica's eyes reddened slightly. "Thank you, sister." Sunlight broke through the mist, wrapping her in its glow radiant, hopeful, and warm. After that day, the court case concluded. Jason was sentenced to a year for leading others to bully a classmate. My coughing grew worse, blood staining my handkerchief, and my face was as pale as snow. The best doctors at home and abroad all said I wouldn't live past winter. At midnight, I sat on my bed, the soft light of the night lamp casting a faint glow across my face. I took out all my birthday photos, each one a record of my growth, from babbling toddler to poised adult. They stopped at age 21. I was born in spring, and before 22 could arrive, I was destined to die in winter. Misfortune never comes alone. Members of the Delaney board had sensed my illness and were growing restless, vying for power. Even my second uncle's son, Carlos, went to our villa in Sanya to persuade my father to transfer 40% of his shares to him. The illness I'd tried so hard to hide was now public. I'd never wanted my parents to bear my burdens. In the private hospital room, my hands clutched the white bed sheets as Luke's calm voice filled the air. "Jennifer, Carlos is a bastard. When Uncle Delaney refused to hand over the shares, he joined forces with other companies to attack Delaney Group and even slandered your father in public." As his words faded, the recording of the board meeting played. Carlos's arrogant, venomous voice made my stomach turn. He dared to call my father an old fool and said that once I died, Delaney Group would be his. His confidence came from his talent he was gifted. Ambitious, a North China University graduate, the pride of his generation. I frowned slightly, lips curling in faint amusement. Such confidence. But Delaney Group doesn't have to stay in Delaney blood. My father held 40% of the shares, my mother 20%, and the rest were scattered among other shareholders. I'd been able to take over Delaney Group so young not only because of my ability, but because of their support. As long as their life's work could keep growing strong, and they could live their later years in peace, it didn't matter whether the next chairperson carried Delaney blood or not. Moonlight slowly bathed the hospital room. Luke was dozing in a chair when the door creaked open. Jessica entered with a bouquet of vivid red roses. In the darkness, she forced a smile, trying not to show any sadness before me. But I saw through it completely. A helpless ache rose in me. Parting through death was the cruelest thing in life. Jessica spoke softly, like a little son, sharing cheerful stories as the red roses brightened the pale winter room. When she finished, I went straight to the point. "Delaney Group's been in trouble lately. Someone's trying to—" Jessica cut me off. "I know. Do you want me to step in, sister?" Just then, the TV flickered on. Carlos's handsome face appeared on the screen. "The current chairwoman of Delaney Group is ill," he said smoothly. "But operations will continue as usual. Supplies across all sectors are stable. No one needs to worry." His lips curved slightly. As for the next chairperson, that's yet to be decided. The ambition in his eyes was obvious, his intentions as clear as day. I pressed my lips together, fury rising. My voice came out hoarse. "Who gave him the right to speak for Delaney Group? That vile, scheming snake?" Jessica rubbed my back gently, her tone soft and soothing. "Don't be angry, sister." My gaze stayed fixed on the sanctimonious face on the screen. My fists tightened until my knuckles ached. After a long moment, I picked up my phone and called. "Dad, don't worry about Carlos. Just come to the hospital." My parents were old, both with heart problems. They couldn't handle family strife. With behavior like Carlos's, he was utterly unfit to lead. No wonder, in my dream, Delaney Group had fallen, surviving only with Luke's support. It turned out that while I was ill, The family's unity had already splintered. To fight for power, Carlos had even allied with rival companies to threaten my father. But he'd only sealed his own fate. Playing with tigers never ends well. While I was deep in thought, an elderly man in a sharp suit, hair white but eyes clear and strong, walked in. A wave of guilt rose in me. I was an adult, yet I'd failed to give my parents peace. "Dad, once you sign this, you won't have to worry anymore." I handed him the contract I'd prepared. It was a share transfer document with my name written clearly. On my 18th birthday, my mother had already given me her 20%. Now, with my father's 40%, Jessica would have full authority to lead. My father stared at the papers for a long time, then turned toward the girl beside my bed. "This is Jessica? She does look a lot like you. Jennifer, if this is your decision, I'll support you with all I have." As he spoke, he signed his name in sweeping strokes. His life's work, entrusted to a stranger, only because I said so. My nose stung. My vision blurred. For the first time, I felt real fear of dying. I didn't want to leave my parents. I didn't want to leave Luke or Jessica. Beyond mountains, rivers, and fine food, what truly bound me to this world was love. My father handed me a tissue. "Cry, baby. Wipe your nose. Everything will be okay. Don't be afraid." I took it, sobbing so hard my voice trembled. "It'll be okay." But we both knew I wouldn't make it through the winter. We were only comforting each other. My father stayed with me for a long time. Luke eventually woke, and the four of us sat in silence through the long night. The next morning, I asked my father to make Jessica his goddaughter. My mother arrived soon after. The five of us shared breakfast. Then Luke accompanied Jessica to Delaney Group. The two of them looked perfect together, handsome and beautiful, a matched pair. The powerful male and female leads, destined to stand atop the Capitol, admired by all. With them fighting for Delaney Group, I had nothing left to worry about. I smiled bitterly. So I was truly the side character fated to die young. Still, 21 years of jewels, gowns, and affection perhaps, that was enough. Maybe I'd already lived an entire lifetime. Through the security feed, I watched Luke and Jessica outmaneuver Carlos with a few sharp words, leaving him speechless. As expected, Jessica became the new chairwoman of Delaney Group, but the challenges awaiting her had only just begun. Delaney Group was now being suppressed by Carlos in alliance with other corporations, and problems had erupted across multiple industries. For Jessica, newly in charge, this wasn't just about resolving the crisis, it had to be done flawlessly. She took a month's leave from North China University and moved her entire office into my hospital room. She worked tirelessly, eyes fixed on contracts, typing on her laptop, occasionally stepping out to make quiet phone calls, every movement gentle and restrained. That night, I looked up at her and noticed the dull fatigue in her eyes suddenly flicker with light. My voice, weak and faint, broke the silence. "You should rest for a while. You can't keep pushing yourself like this." Jessica shook her head. "I just want to make you happy." I froze, then reached for a mirror and stared at my reflection skin. Sallow, eyes lifeless, lips pale. I tugged the corners of my mouth into a smile uglier than crying. So I hadn't been happy after all. "Go to sleep. There's no need to rush to prove yourself. I believe in you. It's only a matter of time." Under my persuasion, Jessica finally closed her eyes in exhaustion. In the dark, my own eyes burned with strain, sleep impossible. I wanted to get up and pull the blanket over her, but my legs were weak, useless. How pathetic I couldn't even cover Jessica with a blanket when she was now running the company, taking care of my parents, doing everything I could no longer do. Frustration flooded me. I exhaled deeply and lay back down, falling asleep at last in the middle of the night. Jessica's efforts soon paid off. Delaney Group's troubles were all resolved, and even the stubborn old men on the board began to see her differently. I grew increasingly lethargic, spending 15 hours a day asleep. Family and friends came to visit, but I barely had the strength to speak. One day, I woke to see snow falling thick and white beyond the window. Winter had arrived, quiet and merciless. The red circles on my calendar had multiplied. 10 days until the new year. I couldn't be sure how many of them I'd live to see. Pain flared in my chest, and I started coughing violently. I covered my mouth with a tissue, and when I pulled it away, it was speckled with blood. Jessica walked in, holding a bouquet of red roses. She froze at the sight, the tears she'd held back for so long finally spilling over. She gripped my hand tightly, voice trembling. "Sister, someone as good as you shouldn't have to die." I smiled gently. "It's okay. My life was worth it." Though Jessica was now a billionaire, capable and composed, she still looked so helpless in front of me, like the little flower seller I'd first met, breaking my heart all over again. I patted her head softly. "All right, I just want to rest a bit." Jessica jumped to her feet and nodded quickly, telling me to watch the charity gala tomorrow before she left. I reached into my bedside drawer and pulled out a pen and 3 greeting cards, ones I'd asked my father to bring me. Carefully, I wrote on each, then drifted into a hazy sleep. When I woke the next day, the sky outside was already dim with evening. I turned on the TV and switched to the charity gala channel. Jessica stood on stage, stunning in a red dress like fire, her lips bright, hair softly curled. Her voice rang clear. "I'm donating 60 million to impoverished mountain regions. I only hope one person's kindness to me can be passed down forever. And may it bring her blessings. May her life be full of joy." When the host asked who that person was, Jessica answered confidently, "The best person I ever met, Jennifer." And it's not an exaggeration to say, my sister changed my life. Without realizing it, I was smiling, warm as spring. Jessica, once timid and insecure, now stood under the spotlight, poised and radiant. From the stand-in canary of the original story, she had become a successful, self-made woman worth billions. And it was all because of me. A quiet pride filled me. The Delaney name would not fade from the capital. The business would stay strong, and my parents' life's work was safe. They would grow old in peace. As for Luke, once he read his card, he'd understand. He wouldn't fall apart. Outside, fireworks burst suddenly, painting the snowy world in color. Their sound mingled with Jessica's words. I closed my eyes, calm at last. When Luke entered the hospital room, my eyes were shut, my chest still. On the bedside table lay 3 greeting cards for my parents, for Jessica, for Luke. Trembling, Luke picked his up. It read, "Luke, Happy New Year in advance. After I'm gone, you must be happy, free, brilliant, and shining as always. If you meet someone who stirs your heart, don't hold back. Be brave. Remember, I'll always want you to smile. And thank you for being in my life these 21 years. You made them wonderful." Luke's eyes were blood red as he called my name over and over. Jennifer, Jennifer, Jennifer. I wanted so badly to reach out and hold him, to tell him not to grieve, but I couldn't touch him anymore. Jessica and my parents arrived soon after and found the cards. My parents wept until their eyes were swollen, white-haired elders mourning their child. Jessica stood frozen for a long time before she dared to look at me lying there. Everyone was crying, but I supposed it was still a kind of happy ending. I had come to this world in spring, among 100 blooming flowers, and left it in winter, with the snow.